we have Instagram and Twitter, which we will be putting on screen and in the description down below. We try to update as often as possible, and we love communicating with all of you. Hello everybody. In this new video, we will show you how to make Thor's new weapon, Stormbreaker. To start off with Stormbreaker, we made these three templates, which is the axe head, the center, and the hammerhead. The centerpiece itself is almost 7 inches tall. From blade to base, the axe head is about 8 1/4. And the hammerhead is about 8 inches long as well. The wide end of the axe is about 8, and the shorter end is about 5 inches. Next, we started to use Ava foam to make the base of the axe head. We traced it with a Sharpie 4 times. After that, we cut them out with X-Acto knives. Next, we started to glue the axe head together with contact cement. What you're supposed to do is spread it on real nice with a nice coat, and then wait for it to almost dry. Wait till it's tacky. If you touch it, it'll be sticky a little bit. Then you could slowly put them together. Or you can do what we did for the center of the axe head and just do hot glue for every layer. When sanding off this much material, make sure to switch out old Dremel heads to newer Dremel heads so you can sand with more efficiency. Make sure to get yourself any kind of respirator. Take it nice and easy and start sanding the edges so they're pretty smooth. Next, we had cut apart the template so we can find out where the bevel is on the axe head. We also drew points on the side. Just like before, take it easy when sanding, wear a respirator, or do it in a well-ventilated area. And just remember, you're going to be taking off a lot of material, so don't be afraid to go at it pretty good. When the sanding with the Dremel is done, you will see that there are indents and imperfections. You can go over these with some light sanding with sandpaper. Next, we started to cut out the inside decal for the axe to make it out of craft foam. Next, we started to cut out the inside, which we shaded in pencil so we know. We decided before we moved any further that we would just test fit it on the axe head just to see if it fits real quick. Then, when that was done, we started to pin it down with sewing pins. And of course, tracing it with a Sharpie marker. Using a wood burner, after everything was traced down, we started to actually engrave the inside line with the point to the end. Just like cutting out the paper version, we cut out the craft foam version, and we are about to glue it on. Before that, we used a different wood burner head, more of a pencil type, to etch out these lines. Using hot glue, we glue the design on inch by inch. Just like the outer decal, we glue on the inner decals. Now, splitting the template up even further to the top left corner, we actually start to cut straight through the paper to try to get the decal lines to go directly to the foam, and then we can cut into the foam after that. And there are the guidelines. Then, after using the X-Acto knife, we traced over the lines with a wood burner. After that, we start to work on the centerpiece. This centerpiece is going to be made out of Avafoam, and it's essentially going to be made into a box. But first, we're going to cut off this little triangle piece and make that later. One of these sides is going to be the axe side, and one of these sides is going to be the hammer side. The other two sides are just about an inch tall and are just to hold the thing together. This triangle piece is just a very small, maybe 1.5 inch triangle piece that goes on right underneath the axe head and attaches to the centerpiece. Using an X-Acto knife, we also etched in these little decals, which will be opened up later with a heat gun. After this centerpiece box was fully glued together, we got a piece of PVC pipe that was slightly smaller than the actual base handle, and we made sure it fit around that said pipe. Here is the setup of the top of the handle. This piece of PVC pipe goes inside the base. This box goes over top. These two holes are drilled in to the pipe and to the EVA foam, which these dowels will slide through, which will eventually be glued inside each side of the hammer and the axe to help give support when glued on. And then this little piece will be the cap that goes on top. So we changed some stuff up a little bit. These smaller templates are going to be used for the top and the bottom of the hammer. This other big template on the side here is going to be the front side and the back side of the hammer. So we're going to all cut these out of Avafoam and then move on from there. Using a Sharpie and slightly offsetting the template, we create all of the lines that are supposed to go on the sides. Like so. Then we have to cut down the center to make this two complete pieces. After the pyramid shape is cut in half, we take a Dremel and start beveling a 45-degree angle on the inside of each side. After that, we have found a piece of foam that fits directly below the pyramid piece, so we can glue it on just like this. Now, we are going to etch in some lines just below the bottom, and then glue it together with contact cement. These lines, you can also open them up a little bit more with a Dremel, are going to be folded inwards and glued so that the top has a rounded bevel. Next, we started to wood burn these very long lines in the top and the bottom piece of the hammerhead. To make these pieces fit together like a puzzle, the top pieces had to be sanded at an inward angle and the side pieces had to be sanded at an outward angle, so they would eventually start to look like that. When it's all glued together, you have this funny looking piece that we made a cap for on the bottom and a cap for on the top, and as you can see, we're just trimming the base and then we're about to add the top just with some contact cement, just like usual. Then once it's glued on, we started to sand the whole top edge at a 45-degree angle so that it looks like the toy we were modeling it off of. So there's this giant circle at the top of the hammer. We found this weird tin in our garage that works just fine. So just because it works for us doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You might have to find something else. Like we found a random piece here, so it's all up to you on the size of your circle. Next, we start gluing on some trim. These go straight down the front and the back. They're just two, maybe half-inch wide craft foam strips. Go right above the 45-degree angle on the side. Then we started to add some thin strips of craft foam to the top side of the hammer for more trim. And last but not least, we started to use quick seal to try to seal up the seams. Personally, we should not have used quick seal. We should have used clay, and we're going to link a tutorial in the description down below on how to use clay. When all of the top pieces were finished and sealed with quick seal, we decided that we wanted this hammer to be about 36 inches long, or 3 feet. The main thing we used on the PVC pipe to make it look like wood were an assortment of rasps, and we just essentially dragged them or just simply sanded them across the PVC pipe. Using a dark walnut wood stain, we simply put the wood stain on a rag and transferred it to the pipe. For the taper in the handle, we hit the almost center of the PVC pipe with a heat gun on one of its highest settings and slightly started bending with more and more pressure until we got the bend that we like. To help it cool down a lot faster, you can use a wet rag and just start gliding it across. It makes the PVC pipe cool down and solidify again. We are using AvaFoam for the bottom half of the handle. This thing is going to be about 9 inches. It's going to go from where my hand is to about the bottom. And we're going to be wrapping it in AvaFoam, gluing with some kind of contact adhesive. First, we marked out where the hammer is going to end with that line there, and then we started wrapping a little bit just to see where it would end going both ways. So now we could start cutting it out, taking off those little puzzle pieces, and then cutting down the sides like so. It's a good idea to try to heat and bend the foam in different directions, kind of over-exaggerate it to get the foam ready for gluing. As you can see here, we have a little bit of overhang, but that's okay because I'd rather have overhang than have it too short. Here we are scoring the inside of the foam with an X-Acto knife before we start the glue. This helps the glue of your choice, if it's E6000, barge cement, Gorilla Glue, or epoxy, stick to the foam better. After gluing down the handle and waiting a day, we started to sand the handle because it's all uneven on the edge. So we started using a Dremel and just started to flatten out the edge as flat as possible. The top of the handle needs to be almost flush with the PVC pipe handle, so we went at that more than the rest of the handle just to make it, a little better looking. The very end of the handle is supposed to have a line that comes across just like this, so we're going to just mark it off with some Sharpie, and then we're just going to simply cut it with some scissors, then fold it inwards to get the same cut on the inside. Using a Dremel and a fairly used Dremel head, we started to lightly sand off any fuzzies and imperfections on this handle butt. We made a cap by tracing the actual oval shape. Then simply gluing it in with hot glue. Just like the side of the handle, we used a Dremel head to make the actual handle butt smooth and flush. To make it look more like a wooden handle, we actually just used the Dremel head and kind of tore up the edges a little bit. Also, making it look a little more like wood, we used a wood burner and an X-Acto knife to open up lines that look like wood grain. Then using a heat gun to open up the X-Acto knife lines. Last but not least, we added some clay to this seam, and then we're just going to start painting the Ava foam this brownish burnt umber color, trying to get it to match the wood stain as much as possible. For the very tip of the handle, the exact top, I took a little piece of PVC pipe that's already wood stained and started cutting a lot of random lines in it with a coping saw. Next, we had decided to heat up the PVC pipe with a heat gun and then actually twist it with pliers, and then eventually we even decided to throw it in a vise and actually try to squeeze this shut to make it look like a point. When it comes to painting the hammerhead, the center, and the axe head, we just used some simple Rust-Oleum gunmetal spray paint and did a couple coats on each piece to make sure that it was fully painted. For the decals on the silver parts, we laid down some white acrylic and then started lightly putting over silver acrylic to make it look like a bright silver. We had used E6000 and put them around the wooden dowels before putting the dowels into each side of the hammer. Eventually using hot glue when the E6000 solidified enough for more support. Checking for which side the hammer side is on and which side the bend is on, because they're supposed to be on the same side, we decided that's how we're going to glue the head on. When it came to making the wrappings around the head, we used these side pieces that come in Ava foam packs. We cut off all these little pieces, glued 3 of them together, rounded them off with a Dremel, etched in some wood grain, and heated the wood grain so they pop. And even painted them the same color as the foam handle. And that's it. Thor's new weapon, Stormbreaker. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video, and make sure to have a nice day. Thank you for watching.